I've been reporting on Brad for a long time. I've never really come across a really bad story on it.
Away from Russia and Iran, two real adversaries of the United States, toward, we hope, better governance, a better chance for the Syrian people. I do worry as somebody who spent time in Syria with these very people who are doing the fighting and rolled into Damascus. Among them are people who are jihadists who could pose a threat to the future security of Syria. But for the moment, what I was hearing yesterday from the administration officials was a sense of extraordinary change as a weakened Russia and weakened Iran reeling after Israel's overwhelming response to October 7th. Rules in the Middle East.
Good morning.
It's really hard, Atlas, for me to begin to explain how world affairs have been reordered. Of course, the Russians got into the Middle East several years ago for the first time since 1973, when Putin sent troops in. So you had Iran, you had Russia, you had Syria, and it really created a network of terror, a network of instability. Russia could launch that into Africa. You could have Iran funneling terrorist supplies into Hamas, Islamic Jihad, and Hezbollah. That just all got blown up this weekend. We don't know who the long-term winners are going to be, but certainly the short-term.
Good morning, everybody.
Certainly look to be
Just gotta
Iran,
fix my leg.
Russia,
Hold on.
and
Hold
Assad.
on.
Absolutely correct. And just look at a map. If you think of it as that old game of Risk we played as kids, boom, goes the bridge that runs from
Okay, it's
Iran,
on.
you're showing
It's on.
now, over to Syria and to Lebanon to the Mediterranean Sea. Boom goes to Russian bases on the Mediterranean, the warm weather port that they have cherished the ideal of for so long, as you showed there. Now their ability to operate in that eastern Mediterranean gone overnight. So all of this is a remarkable twist of fate. I think military analysts are going to focus initially on what the hell happened here so fast. And it's kind of a combination, right? It's corruption and conscription difficulties, long-running queues in Syria, as David says. It's also the distraction of Russia tied up in Ukraine and Iran, flattened by Israel. And then thirdly, let's not underestimate the rise of a charismatic leader. I think a lot of folks are getting to know
Hi, how you doing?
Al-Jilani. Learn that name, and we'll see where this goes. Is this going to be a new awakening, as we all hope? David used the words "we hope," and I think we do. I think if you run the numbers here, 25% chance it turns out really well, and there's a secular country kind of
I'm good.
emerges. I think 25% it shuts
Real
down
good.
pretty quickly as
Today,
jihadists
don't
take over.
stab my
Maybe a
foot.
50%
Pretty
chance it looks
much.
like Libya, which is an ongoing
The
state of
States.
conflict. All just too soon to tell, but bottom line, it is confusion to our enemies and success, at least for the moment, for the Democratic side of things.
And they collapse, Mika, as we just heard, in part because Russia, as Donald Trump even said on Truth Social this weekend,
Pepper.
Russia has been gutted by Ukraine.
I like a lot of
They
pepper
didn't have the
on my
force
eggs
to
in the
help us
morning.
out in this time of need. And post October 7th, Iran
I don't like
has been
salt.
gutted by Israel and attacks. They don't even have an air defense.
South Carolina here.
Air defense right now. So these two powerful allies of Assad in Assad's time of need were nowhere to be seen.
Is it raining where you
Let's take a
are?
look at exactly what happened and then get right
Go
to the
Cox.
cause. Syrian rebels toppled the regime of President Bashar al-Assad over the weekend, ending his family's decades-long
Peppa.
rule. The rebels seized Damascus
Oh.
after a lightning advance across key cities like Aleppo
Yeah.
and Homs.
I'm having a good
According to a
day.
senior Biden administration official, Assad has fled to Moscow, where he has been granted asylum. As the news broke, celebrations erupted nationwide, even in regime strongholds. Meanwhile, Israel bolstered security near the Golan Heights, but stated it will not intervene. President Biden delivered remarks from the White House yesterday, shortly after Assad's regime fell.
But tomorrow we're going to be at I'm going to be at Starbucks. Yeah.
I'll speak with leaders of the region.
No, it's raining.
Had long discussions
I'ma
with all our
just
people this morning. And I'll send senior officials from my administration to the region as
get
well.
everything together for me in the morning, and all I just gotta do is pick up and go, and
Protecting any
that's it.
personnel, our personnel,
It would have been planned today
and remain our mission
if I
against ISIS was
planned this
maintained,
out a year in
including
advance.
the security
It would
of
have been.
detention facilities where ISIS fighters are being held as prisoners. We're clear-eyed about the fact that ISIS will try to take advantage of any vacuum to reestablish its capabilities to create a safe haven. We will not let that happen. As I've said, this is a moment of considerable risk and uncertainty, but I also believe this is the best opportunity in generations for Syrians to forge their own future.
My birthday.
Free of opposition. It would be a waste of this historic opportunity if one tyrant were toppled. And only to see
My
everyone
birthday.
rise up in this place.
I go to Starbucks
Richard
I'm
Howell,
going
Syrian
Starbucks
analyst,
and get
where
my
this goes from
free
here,
coffee.
maybe a brief bit
and just
on
hang out at
Joe
Starbucks for a
Biden's
few
foreign
hours.
policy legacy.
That's pretty much treating myself.
Where it goes from here, the honest answer, no matter who you ask that question to, Mika, is we're not sure how it's going to play out. Historically,
And go live from
traditionally,
there.
after revolutions succeed in their first phase of ousting the so-called ancien regime, in this case the Assads,
That's
there's
just
often a falling
mainly
out
it.
among the various groups that were part of the effort, because they agreed on what they were against, something very different to agree on what they're for, and there's a scramble for power. So I think something like that is inevitable. The question is whether it
No.
comes together in some large struggle in Syria, or whether you have something
No.
very different,
No,
almost a
Gavin.
patchwork quilt, where Syria remains a country on a map, but the Kurds have this part, Turkish-backed forces have this part, this Sunni group, HTS that took the lead here, they have large parts of Syria. I think that's the real question there, and I don't think we're going to have a whole lot of influence on this. I think the real question for the United States is how do we use this in some ways to try to
No
influence
kids.
our biggest concern in
I don't
the
have
region,
kids
which is
anyway.
Iran. And what is
Not
it we
married.
do in terms of taking advantage
Listening.
of a weakened Iran? Its
I like
search
it like
proxies
that.
are on their heels. Iran itself is on its heels. What can we do now to deal with the nuclear challenge, to try to reduce or cut off Iran's aid for proxies? What do we do about the regime itself? It must be a little bit worrying. One other thought, Mika. Let's put on the table. What's so interesting, I was just in Saudi Arabia, and the conversations I had with officials there was, for the most part, you Americans have to get over your hostility towards Bashar al-Assad. He's there to stay. You've got to somehow normalize relations with him. The alternatives are worse. And what's interesting to me is how much people
I was
despair in
never
so-called
married.
stability, and what this tells us about regimes. And what was it about him? And I think it is, my own instinct here, is he never really institutionalized it, so it was very brittle.
Try again. I'm a
And
little bit
these-
older
some of
than
these-
that.
Like China is an authoritarian regime, but it's not brittle. It's institutionalized. The most brittle.
Let's just
regime
say
in size, I actually think, is Russia.
next year
Because
is
Putin has
going to
destroyed
be
institutions there.
a hell of a lot
And He
different.
himself must be watching events a little bit uneasily. And then you've got the question of Iraq. They're almost in between. There's some institutions there, but also it's pretty top heavy. And I expect they're having some uneasy moments in Tehran right now.
Man, I'm planning for next year right now. I just gotta talk to some people.
US sanctions through the years just gutted the economy. What money they did have was
Yeah,
lost
I'm
in
much
corruption.
older.
And those fighters who had been fighting and dying for Assad through the years realized they were getting nothing back in return because there
Excuse
really
me.
wasn't
My
a
throat
functioning
just burped.
state that was worth fighting for. And so overnight, as we
I'm
see
gonna let
this
you keep
week,
on guessing my age.
Assad is now coming. You look at what Mika said.
Now I gotta
We are all obviously
if I plan on,
looking
I know I'm
around,
planning on
distracted by
going
all, everything that
to
has happened
stay
since the
somewhere,
election. But history's going to record
but
the end
it's
of the
got to
Biden
be
administration,
accommodating
and it's
to
going to
my
see
needs
Russia
because I'm an
and their military
amputee
gutted
and
at
everything
levels
has
we
got to
haven't seen in
be
our lifetime. Weaker
ADA
than levels
approved.
we haven't seen in our lifetime. The ruble on the
So
run,
I
and
kind of know where I
economy
want to,
close to being
who I want to go
shattered.
with
They're going to see with
to
Iran
do
weaker
this
than
with
they've ever been since the
because they're
1979
willing to
revolution. They,
help out,
in effect, don't have
and they got
any
their
air
own
defense
YouTube
systems
channel,
left.
and
They are at Israel's mercy. And now you have Assad, who is
they would
gone.
help
Now, of
out.
course, Joe Biden, as you know better than anybody because you follow him, in Ukraine, he was always being attacked
And if
for
I
doing too much or not doing enough. And Israel
pay a
attacks
little
too
along and
much
along and
for
get
doing too
everything
much
that
or
I
not
need
doing enough.
together,
Right? And in
which I have
fact,
to plan in
Chancellor
my
Kamala
head
Harris
what I
lost
need,
Michigan because
which I
people
already
thought
got that
he was doing
planned,
too much to help Israel out.
I'll
Now,
be good to go.
well, too much, not enough, I don't know, but history's going to show that what he did in Ukraine to help the Ukrainians in their fierce fight against Russia and the supplies and weapons that he gave Israel gave them ability to do all of this and again have a map that is completely remade
Complications due
with
to
people
diabetes.
who consider themselves
I am a
farm
below the knee
enemies
amputee
now,
on my
weakened,
right.
historical
I'm
manner,
actually a double
and
amputee.
on the run.
Yeah, all of that
So,
is correct, including a weaker Russia,
and I
including
lost
a weaker
my
Iran,
first limb on
including
my same limb
perhaps its
that
electoral
is
impact here in the
not
United States.
there
There's
anymore.
no question that Joe Biden will be seen as a deeply consequential foreign policy president with ramifications felt for decades.
So
And certainly there's a
everything,
note of uncertainty and even trepidation as to what might come next
like
in Syria. But
hotels,
we should also just take
cruises,
a moment to think about
they
the
got
scenes
to
we saw
cater
this week,
to
the joyful scenes, families reunited
people
for the
with
first time in years.
disabilities. They have to
Prisoners
follow the
tasting
ADA
freedom for
Act.
the first time in decades. Just celebrations.
They got to have rails, they got to have benches, they got to have beds at a certain height, which the beds at a certain height don't bother me because I'm 5'10".
A makeshift sled through the city streets, joyful men atop of it.
And they got to have
This is a new chapter
room to
in their
move, you know,
lives
if
and a new
people were
chapter,
in
for their
wheelchairs
country.
or
Really
scooters,
remarkable there, even as we try to figure
and which I don't
out
use
what
a wheelchair
comes
or a
next.
scooter.
Joining us now to help us shed some insight.
And
Join us
it's
live
got
from
to
the
be
Golden Heights,
okay.
NBC News international correspondent Ralph Sanchez.
I have a
Ralph, so good to see you. Give
prosthesis.
us the very
I have a
latest air
prosthetic.
from the region,
And
including
this is my
how
second
Israel,
prosthetic.
as we were just
And
talking
this is
about,
another
how
thing I want to
Israel
talk about.
played,
Is look
played
at
a
this.
role here in
I'm gonna
Syria.
talk about it
Also,
while
how
I'm
we look
eating at
this
the same
opportunity.
time. So
Yeah, Jonathan, good morning. So we're on
I
the
got
really controlled side
in
of
trouble
Golan Heights.
with
We're
one of the
looking out over southern
YouTubers saying
Syria,
that
Damascus,
well, it's not really a
visibility of the
YouTuber.
horizon that way.
It's a little
And
troll.
48 hours
Hold on.
ago, Bashar al-Assad was in power there, as his family has been every day for more than 50 years in Syria. But today is a new day in Syria. In many ways, it is a new day
Just
in the Middle
thought
East.
that I
So
was
the panel
chewing
was
with my mouth
discussing
open,
this
but I was eating
coalition
oatmeal.
of Syrian rebels
Come
up to
on.
this lightning fast
But
advance that basically has brought an end to the 13-year
Oh, yeah.
civil war, are now
My
in
prosthesis.
power in Damascus.
It's very
They're
important.
consolidating control.
I'm on
And
my
Bashar
second
al-Assad has
prosthesis.
fled to Moscow.
Hey, Tina.
He has been granted asylum
I'm
there,
on my
according
second
to Russian state
prosthesis,
media.
and
He's with his family. We believe that his wife Asma, British-born former
my second
investment banker,
prosthesis will
is
cost
with him.
more than a
Who
brand new
prepared to give
car.
him asylum,
Pretty
but was
much.
not there in his moment of need.
And
as
I
these
was
rebels
telling
were
this
closing in, as you've
to
been talking about Russia,
this other
lockdown in
lady
Ukraine, Iran has
last time I seen my
after more than a year of
prosthetist.
fighting with
I was going to
Israel.
design
The
my
largest
third
of those
leg.
groups is called Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. It is an Islamist group. It has its origins in Al-Qaeda. It is
We're
still
fighting.
considered
I'm
a terrorist
part of the
organization by the
amputee
United
coalition.
States. But this is a
We
group
do
that is
fight
doing everything
in
they
Washington
can
for
to try to signal to the people of Syria and to the world that it is moderated. It is
insurance
saying
companies
there will
to
be
cover
no revenge
these
attacks
medical
against
expenses
minorities.
because
There will
they
be no limitations
people
on
who
the rights of
have
women
insurance
inside of Syria. And President
they don't
Biden
get
said yesterday
covered
that the U.S. is clear-eyed about what he called the grim
for their
record of terrorism of
prosthesis,
some of these groups.
and they
But
have
that
to
the
go
US
to
will
place
engage
to
there and is
some of them are
hopeful
not
that this
even
may be a moment
computer
to
illiterate,
reshape a free
don't know
Syria.
nothing
And
about
talk,
a
Jonathan, about
website
the
or
joy
anything.
across the country. I want to
So
introduce you to
they're
Abdul
out
Kafi
on their
Al-Abdo.
own.
He's a man I've known
But
for nearly
for
10
people that
years. And in
know
December
a lot about
2016, I said goodbye to him over the phone because I
computers,
was
know
convinced that
about the
he and his
internet, you know,
family
they'll
were
go
going
to
to be killed
crowd
as
surf,
the Assad regime closed in around
crowds
their home in the city of Aleppo. They
supporting
managed to
sources
escape,
like
and I want to play you some sound from
GoFundMe
yesterday
and
morning in the early hours when he received the news
ask
from
for
the
money
Assad
that
regime
way.
that
And
the
some
top
people,
take
they
was
just don't like to ask for money because of PRIDE, pride. And just luckily, my insurance and my Medicaid will cover most of it. That's the question that I have to ask each and every time, you know, I get up. It's a medical equipment that we cannot live without. It's not about the design or how it looks on you. No, it's getting you out there to
there
walk.
cradling his young son, expressing his hope that his children will grow up without oppression and in a free Syria. Just a sign of these are vast
That's what it
geopolitical
is.
events, but they mean so much to the hearts of individual people in that country.
And we're getting airlines to
Thank you so much.
abide by the ADA rules,
Brutal.
which they are doing right now. I mean, airlines are doing that.
Seemingly overnight.
They're
Talk about what this means for Iran
making room for
and
people
for
with
Russia.
who are
Obviously,
wheelchair
the
bound
two big losers here thus far.
and
David,
people
let me
who
start with
are
you. Talk about
like
what
me, you
this
know,
means
having to
for
wear a
Iran.
prosthesis.
So Iran, in the space of really the last 3 months, has seen its
I had,
proxies. Hamas.
see, my
Gaza,
amputation was
in Lebanon, and now Assad in Syria.
April the 22nd of 2020, right
It's hard to imagine that it was just over a year ago.
right in the
October 7th,
COVID
2023,
pandemic.
That Israel looked so weak and traumatized by the horrible
And
Hamas
I
attack
wouldn't
across the Gaza fence.
Today,
hop Israel's run the table.
without someone, you know, right there, because I'm mainly alone during the day. It's just me and my dad. I'm mainly alone. He's out doing his own thing, you know. Right now, he's not talking to me, being the dick. So, what's new?
On Iran at a time when it
But
can't really defend itself. To resolve this issue,
I've made it a point to not let it get hard for me to learn how to walk. Because as soon as I got this leg, as soon as I got my first leg is used as a statue right in the middle of the window, like in the movie A Christmas Story, which is my favorite movie. And
well, I will say, with Iran being at its weakest,
I was able to walk.
in its weakest state since the 1970s
Yep, the leg lamp.
revolution.
Yeah. But it's
all of that is
a one of a kind. It's a statue. It's an award.
Right now,
I won it.
And David's exactly right.
It's actually a look back to where I've
maybe more desperate than ever to get
been.
weapons. Admiral Salinas, tell us, if you will.
And plus, you got to keep.
I
didn't keep the liners or anything that went with it, you know. But when I get my third leg, I have to keep the liners for the second leg in case I need it. You know?
The weakness of Iran. Let's not forget.
But I didn't want to make the first one into a lamb. I just wanted to keep it there. And right now, it's like, it's the leg that never left
I think that's
Times
a
Square.
very tempting target set.
It's got one of those Planet Fitness I know,
Great.
but
Let's go to Moscow. This has got to be a movement of real concern for Vladimir Putin. Your point is exactly right.
but I
Not
make
only
it a
does
little
he now
fun.
have to take this
I make it a
as
little
this,
fun.
now, vagrant coming with his family on bended knee to Moscow. But more importantly, it's the Russian prestige globally that takes a real hit here. It's the damage to the brand. I think you'd have to go back to Yevgeny Prigozhin's ill-fated attempt to topple Putin a year or so ago to see how difficult this moment will be for Putin. So as I look at the hand of cards Putin has going into what I think everybody increasingly presumes will be a negotiation with Ukraine sometime in 2025.
And plus, I
this
could pretty
is a
much
sign of real
keep in
weakness,
contact
for
with
Russia.
the
That's
amputee
good news for the
coalition
United
and
States alongside what we see from the weakness of Iran.
what I want to do.
So Richard, to close, just give us a sense of what to look for in the next couple of weeks, especially given that there's a presidential transition.
Well, what's
coming
on
up,
this
and
mug is
Donald
what's
Trump
on my
has said what he
TV.
said about NATO branching out a bit. What's the challenge for the Biden administration in the weeks to come before the transition?
I think there's limited amounts the Biden administration can do here. That's not a criticism, it's just an observation.
Say my name. I'm gonna have fun with this. Okay.
Let me just move on more broadly. The choices facing the United States. One is, we're obviously, I think, going to start pressing for a negotiated outcome in Ukraine. And I think the real question
And my new Stanley's coming in today. It's out for delivery.
Whether that makes him more difficult or not against the backdrop of his systemic weakness to compromise there. But clearly we're moving towards a negotiated outcome in Ukraine. Vladimir Zelensky has articulated his readiness to accept it. I think the big question facing the United States, and it's essential to our conversation here, is less what we do in Syria, is what we do as a result of Syria and everything else that's happened vis-a-vis Iran. And we have really two paths. One is to try to negotiate a deal with this Iranian government on the nuclear issue and on their support for all their proxies, to essentially shut that down and say, we'll relieve sanctions if you give us what we want on nuclear and proxies.
Yeah, but I got tomorrow's schedule.
The other is to say, no, we're not interested
already
in
made.
right now, and we're going to press
I'm gonna
ahead
try to
with
confuse.
sanctions, and we're going to turn to military force to deal with it.
But because I know that she plays my lives, and she's my biggest fan.
And I think for the Biden administration and then the Trump administration, we have reached
Got a
the
little
proverbial
surprise.
fork in the road when it comes to Syria. about
Where
how
I'm
we
going to
finally
be at.
decide to
Yeah.
deal with
Let
that,
her
at
think
this
that
moment of
I'm
real
going to be
systemic or structural weakness.
here, which I
Richard
took a
Ross,
picture.
Retired Admiral James Stavridis, and the Washington Post.
But I'm
David
not.
Ignatius. Thank you all very much for coming on this morning, and still ahead on Morning Joe.
Thank you,
White
Tina.
House
Please
National
be
Security
respectful in my
Communications
chat.
Advisor John
And if
Kirby
you're not
joins us to
respectful,
talk about the outset
hit that cash app.
and
Okay,
Presidential
okay.
Axios
If you don't want to be
founders
respectful,
Jim Vandehei and
hit that
Mike Allen
cash
will be
app.
our guests to break down how the media is now splintering.
Oh, it's in my
into dozens of
description.
News bubbles, and why finding common ground could be even more complex. Also ahead, Joe's
And I'm playing the
conversation
Gin
with
Blossoms.
President
Come on.
Clinton about what Democrats need to do in the wake of the presidential election.
You and I have now been friends for years. We've got our political differences and we've got our political history.
Let's see what else.
But I know you,
But
I think, and I like it.
tomorrow, I'm not going to be here when this comes.
Makeover through Monday morning.
But Walmart decided to change my delivery for my
And I
honey
think
made
it is
honey grams
beautiful. Everything about it is beautiful, except
to
in the
tomorrow.
corner, you've got this beautiful
Okay.
carved couch.
They could have it. I'm not going to be
Behind the
here.
couch,
They could
there's a
have it.
pink elephant. Yeah, and now I could ask you.
Oh, yeah, and Tina, I did look up the latch hook rugs, and I got some on my wish list, which they were really, really cute. I can't believe they got a hummingbird.
Drink your coffee, talk about how beautiful your living room is, and turn around and not mention the pink elephant.
Which reminds me,
are playing it safe. You seek opportunities others don't.
Yeah.
Your growing ambition
I did add some things to the wish list and took some things out.
Discover new ways to accelerate.
Because could you imagine me coming home one day and finding a whole bunch of microwave ovens in your driveway? Okay, that would not be good.
Out of the picture. Now I have Skyrizi.
But I do have, I think I do, yeah, he still has this out. David Smith. And I remember this book because my mama, she pre-ordered it when it first came out. David Smith, Susan Smith's ex-husband, who I respect and admire the most, wrote a book about her. One of the best reads ever.
Take control of your UC.
And I'm glad that he found the love of his life in Tiffany. Tiffany is more of a woman than Susan will ever be. That's the thing that I said about her. I said, David, you got family that loves you.
On NBC's Meet the Press yesterday, the president-elect also said members of the House, January 6th Select Committee,
my God,
to go to jail.
It just breaks. We in South Carolina don't want to be known for her, but she did this to herself. Bambi, what's up?
Everyone on the committee uses.
That's when I talk about Susan Smith, Bambi jumps up. Bambi jumps up.
I'm gonna focus on drill, baby, drill. I'm gonna look at everything.
But that's
different cases, yeah.
Okay.
But I'm gonna be
yeah.
Within your first
But that's one of the
first day.
First day.
Yeah, I'm looking.
trips that I would like to see.
These people have been there. How long is
Yeah,
it?
oh God, that was the best.
By the way,
That was the best gift anyone could ever
and they're in a filthy, disgusting
received
place.
in the state of South Carolina. She got denied, but she did it to herself. She did it to herself.
CEO of Axios, Jim Vandehei, and co-founder of Axios, Mike Allen. We're going to get guys to the article about the splending of the media, but first, obviously, we should address this. Jim Vandehei, quote, "They should go to jail." Liz
Oh, she was talking. This is something, you know, I should have listened to this. And it was on News Nation.
You know, that's obviously
She said if she would have got parole, she would have been on Dancing with the Stars. Bitch, you ain't no goddamn star.
They said, oh, well, you know, people didn't want the fascist.
That thing just threw me back when I read that. I said, oh, no.
Voting because of
No.
the price of bread and gasoline.
Dancing with the Stars
Donald
is,
Trump
yeah.
still talking this way.
Dancing with the, yeah, Dancing with the Felons in Greenwood, okay? I know where, I know that's not the only women's prison in South Carolina. I know someone who is in prison right now. She's got to serve 30-some years for killing her boyfriend and trying to set his ass on fire. And what makes it so bad? She somehow kin to me down the family line. It's because of Gortman's. And that's on my daddy's side.
The proceedings of the seat of freedom were disrupted, and now those people, it sounds like they'll be set free. And on the first day in office, I think it's one of the many reasons Democrats were so ticked off at Joe Biden.
But this woman said her killed her boyfriend over
a high ground to be able to say that this is
money,
absurd, but
his insurance money.
that interview, which is very, very newsy interview.
and then tried to set the house on fire. He didn't burn.
Executive orders, including many covering,
She took out all the smoke detectors. They found her up the road
part of your family is not, that they might force the
from
entire
where I'm
family
at.
to leave.
They found her.
And so when they talk about the hierarchy of people that they're going to remove from the country, yes, it starts with criminals.
What's up?
But he made it pretty elastic, and we should take him at his word because he's been following through on that.
Yep, and by the way.
And
Wall
she
Street
did
Journal,
have,
headline
well,
here talking about
she had two
Donald Trump wanting
kids,
to get rid
a boy and a
of
girl.
birthright citizenship.
The boy
Let's
killed,
just say that's
caved
not gonna
himself
happen. That's a constitutional amendment, not
a
gonna happen.
year while she
But
was in
still, the headline's
prison.
gonna be out there. People are gonna chase after.
I think it was on Thanksgiving.
Very, very good point that Jim just made. Whenever
Let's
he's
just
talking
say,
about
you know,
persecution against people that
it just wasn't
investigate
good.
that,
And he done it
let's not
outside.
generalize. They should go to
I said,
jail.
they
Jack
don't-
Smith for what he did, et
if
cetera. Are you gonna do it?
Parents,
No, let
if
Pam
you
Bondi look at it.
case
Yes, she'll look
someone
at it.
and you
But
got
one thing he was
kids,
very specific about,
they're gonna get
as
bullied
you all know,
while your ass
was,
is in
the
prison.
January 6th rioters,
You don't
that
know.
are going to be released. And my question is this: when push comes
I mean,
to shove,
you're thinking
on
about
January
yourself, you're
20th,
not thinking
on
about your
January
kids.
21st, is he really going to pardon
And this is
people
what
that
happened.
were violent, that beat the hell out of cops, that gassed cops, that used bear spray against cops? Because if so, there will be a tremendous backlash, even from people who voted for it.
No, that's right. And Joe, that's why the people around him, the people he's talking to, the people in his ear, people who are calling his cell phone, matter so much because we saw President-elect Trump repeat in this great interview with Kristen Welker the fact that he sees success as his retribution. He's talking about the golden age of America that he wants to create, and yet absolutely he leaned into this. Kristen Welker asked him, "Oh, are you going to do this within the first 100 days?" And that's what he said.
But
first day. And Joe, I can tell
I
you,
remember
as I
she
talk to
used to
Republicans,
be
as
a
I talk to people in the
housekeeper
Trump
at one of the
transition,
hotels.
They say that the Hunter Biden party will be a big
And,
part of their talking point.
Because I tried to be a
They can head with
housekeeper.
some of
It
these,
didn't work
parties
out for
that
me.
They will say, you open
'Cause they
the door,
time
there's a
you.
thread on the sweater, they absolutely will pull.
They
Yeah, well,
she
again,
asked me one time.
They can use those Jonathan Lemire if they want to.
Good morning, Caden. How you doing? And we're just talking about South Carolina murders.
For just doing their
And
job,
the person that I know
defending the United States
somehow
Capitol.
kin to me.
Good luck with that politically. It will
She's
not
gonna be
go
60-some years old when she gets out of prison up in Greenwood.
Of jail that was sentenced
But,
10 years for beating the hell
she
out of
asked
a
me
law enforcement officer.
how certain
That's on you. I'll read you what Liz
people
Cheney had to say. Here is the truth. Donald Trump attempted to overturn the 2020
how
presidential election and seize power. He
two individuals were doing. I said, one just got out of jail.
And halted the official counting of electoral votes.
Oh
Cheney said,
no.
Donald Trump's suggestion that members of Congress who later investigated his illegal and unconstitutional action should be jailed is a continuation of his assault
my
on the rule of law and the foundations of our republic. And Jonathan Lemire, for a new incoming president, you know what? That is
Dear
not
Lord,
the
we
fight
come here today.
he wants to pick. I mean, he
We ask
may
for your
want to pick that fight, but it's just not going to end well.
prayer. We ask for you to be with Caden and his 4-year-old son who is in for brain surgery this morning. Please guide the surgeons.
If he were to do this, and I think there's a few things to hit here.
They
First, on the
know
partisan
what's
point, I mean, they can use
going
the Hunter
on.
Biden thing as a talking
Please
point, but these
guide
cards will
them
come
to
anyway. There's nothing to do with Hunter
fix
Biden. Let's be clear about that. That's first. Secondly, on the deportations piece of this,
what's
which is again, he
going
leaned into,
on.
he doubled down. He said, "Well, I wouldn't
And
separate
please
families this time around.
help
like
this
I did the
sweet
first
little
term. That's
angel
because I would deport entire
heal
families."
quicker
And I do think there's a lot of people, Democrats, who are so despondent right now, who do wonder if
and do
in those early
amazing
days
things.
of the Trump
In Jesus'
administration,
name
were
we
to
pray.
follow through with
Amen.
this, that would be the moment that would electrify the opposition
I got
and
you.
protests, working to actually do it. We'll have to see if he does. There'll be a lot of pushback, even from the business world, which he cares about quite a bit. But he's at least
Right.
to this moment
Amen.
saying
I don't hardly ever play,
that he
but
will.
I'll
lastly,
play.
Joe,
Oh
you get this
God,
idea that he said, well, I wouldn't direct people under me
that's
to
got the
carry out these
hardest
arrests, to carry out
thing.
targeting my political opponents. That's giving him some plausible deniability. Maybe he won't on January 21st say, hey, arrest Liz Cheney. He's already directed it. He has said these names over and over and over for months.
Well, y'all heard about TikTok. There's news going around January 19th.
For sure, we have to see how these choices pan out.
And I heard that date
some of them get through or not,
yesterday.
or how they're put in place, and also Donald
I got
Trump
you,
will have a
Bubba.
decision to make for himself. What will be more important to him on day one? Meetings with leaders, Democrats, Republicans.
I heard Suge Knight.
policy
I heard
and
Suge Knight.
legislative
You know,
action, and perhaps getting things done, meeting goals. or
Suge
setting
Knight was
respect,
talking.
which would make it very hard for any of those other things
Right.
to happen. That's a big choice. Also, Adam Schiff, who was on the committee, he's being sworn in as a senator today, and he will be joining us later on Morning Joe.
Yeah, that's
Jim, there are two doors.
they don't know for sure, but they was throwing around dates. That date last night.
That's an old Price is Right.
Because they were saying where all these beggars is going to go to next.
Hey, I want to move forward. I want to make
And they was
America
mentioning
great. I want
Discord.
our economy stronger than ever. I want to focus
What was another
on
one?
making this
Clapper.
country great. If there's that door you can open, or there's the door that we saw
It was
in
mentioning that.
2017, where the first months were just completely crippled by one protest after
I said, don't
another
go on
protest
Twitch,
after
don't go on
another
YouTube.
protest. And of course,
And they did mention Rumble last night, but
2017
no,
elections from
Rumble's not going to put up with it.
Pennsylvania to Virginia. 2018 they lost. 2019 they lost. The question is whether he's going to repeat himself, because he can't do two things.
Right.
He can't look forward and work on a legacy that he thinks is going to be about making America greater and stronger and more powerful than ever before, while going after political opponents.
Mm-hmm.
I think he would argue otherwise. He would argue, watch me, I'm going to do both. They're very clear when you talk to them. They think they can do both. The way we look at it is like they basically assembled a team and kind of an idea of creators and destroyers. The creators are the people who are going to be getting the economic jobs. And
it's raining here. Oh God, my dad's out there.
Where you can create
I don't
momentum in
care.
the economy, create
Fuck
growth, create new jobs, create new industries. At the same time, they have these destroyers at FBI or DNI or at the Pentagon, if he gets his way, where they feel like they do want to go after both of their enemies, but also they want to go after what they consider like useless bureaucracies. They really do think they can take the wrecking ball on one side while building on the other. I agree, it's very difficult. Governing is a hell of a lot harder than talking, but they are hell bent on doing it. And if you look at the people they're surrounding,
It's supposed to get up in 60s here tomorrow.
like if you think about the theology of
So I'm not thinking right because I check my weather app constantly.
It might be messy, but at the end of the day, you're going to have a hell of a lot more success if you choose that route. That is the route they will go down.
No, if they try to go down both routes, again, like I said, it won't end well.
Yeah.
They're going to lose in they'll lose 25 elections, 26 elections, 27 elections, but they can try it.
So Jim and Mike, you are out with a recent piece for Axios looking at the growing divide and how Americans consume their news. It's entitled Shards of Glass.
I like to watch
Inside
stuff
Media's
like that
12
if it's
splintering
interesting to me.
realities,
You
in
know?
which you label and explain the dozen different ecosystems that you say modern media consumers inhabit. Starting with the Musketeers. Jim, take it from here.
Now see, it's right. It's raining here.
It goes back to the
It's
beginning of
raining
the
here.
conversation
I
of
don't
these are a
understand.
big segment of the country that thinks it's okay to pardon the people who stormed the Capitol on January 6th. The truth is there are, and a lot of that has to do with information. I think the most useful thing for your viewers is stop thinking about news and start thinking about information. That's how people's minds get molded. It's what are they consuming? A little bit of news, a little bit news adjacent, some of it just nonsense, but that is like the information bubble. And it used to be that all of us kind of looked through the same window. Go back 15, 20 years ago, a couple of newscasts, a couple of cable stations, newspapers, all the same standards. That's now been shattered. And so tell me how much you make or where you work or what you do. And
I
I'll tell you where you
posted
get your
yesterday and I
information from.
forgot.
And that information bubble that you live in could be completely different from the person sitting next to you. And that's
that it was 44 years ago that John Lennon was assassinated.
Kind of vaguely interested in the news. You're getting your news from.
But yet you can't play the song Imagine on YouTube.
Joe Rogan might be listening to Huberman podcast on longevity.
You can play it on TikTok,
And what's really fascinating to
but you can't play it on
is the thought
YouTube.
experiment I give people is you could be sitting at a table with people of different ages from different regions, and every person around that table might be getting their news on a
And see, it
platform they've never
slipped right by me yesterday. Slipped right by me, and then I was on TikTok.
getting hopped up about a topic that's
I
never
know.
come across your desk. That's new, and I think we have to reckon with a lot of our politics.
And Yoko Ono, she goes to every one of Mark David Chapman's parole hearings, and she tells him deny him, and he gets denied each and every time. Ooh, I know, yes.
You pick in terms of ones you feel most
Hey, Jude.
I'll note that of these, there's the Instagrammers, there's the
There is a video,
but the kids,
and it was on my
kids,
Facebook
TikTok,
page,
which is the very future of that
of a
platform.
3-year-old singing the song Yesterday.
Here's a fascinating fact about these fragmented
Oh my God.
realities.
She there was one, she was singing the song Yesterday, and she sounds so sweet. And then another one,
Your income, your location, your age.
it's the same one. She walks up to this pianist and asks him to play the song Imagine.
There isn't shared reality anymore.
Oh my
Now
God.
there aren't even shared topics like those
Woo,
Instagrammers.
that just hits you.
right-wing grandpas.
It hits you when a 3-year-old could sing that song.
They're talking about different things. Case in point, last week I was asked to go on TV and talk about the pardons, and they said, "Can you come on and talk
But I was
about?"
like, I can't take no more of this, man.
Probably not NBC messages, right? Like that is from the right, and so different topics, and
the only two that are.
Ben LeBold, the White House Communications director, a senior
Oh, I'm gonna have to listen to that.
advisor, told Jim and me for
The last one I heard of Johnny Cash, it was that last album that he did was pretty eerie.
Voters, consumers, ages 18 to 35,
And they
they're gonna be
played
something
that
that's
song
released
Hurt
or Axios, and they're
after
not gonna
he
wear
died at
out.
least every hour on
Or
CMT.
It's an 8-second, 9-second clip with a totally different context. So a 90-minute debate becomes they're eating the dogs, they're eating the cats, a remix
Yes.
on Jonathan TikTok.
And of course,
So interesting.
The 9-inch nails.
universe
Yeah.
that Axios and Morning Joe fit neatly in. Jim
And that is, I believe it's the first time
It's
rock and country ever
that term, but it's people who are looking to get
got
informed about
together or
what's happening
something
in the news on a day-to-day
that I
basis,
remember.
largely to do their job or because they're deeply
Because now-
involved in government or in civic debates. And
Yeah.
you know, that's what. So you think about like
I hurt myself today to see that I still feel.
People. And it's a very valuable site.
June Carter. Oh my
People
God.
running companies, running media, running government go to get informed. But like Mike said, there could be an entire population of people who are taking little pieces of that
What
and
have
running with it in ways that
I
would be indistinguishable to how
become?
we even talk about it or how we
Yeah,
write
ooh,
about it. And
mm-mm.
you can sit there and say, this sucks, man, I really want to go back. You can't go back in time. Like, we have no choice
Right.
but to realize
That was
the
true
world
love.
is
Country
changing.
true
And
love.
basically just had this collision of information
Oh
consumption,
God, yes she did.
and business technology all at once. Intellectually, I find it quite invigorating, quite interesting. I think all kinds of new ideas and new businesses will be born.
Walk
from
the
it.
line.
I think your job, our job, is to
Now
try to
remember
make
there
it
was
as
also
politically as possibly as possible. Because
George Jones and
that's
Tammy
what we
Wynette.
all do when we're doing our very best. When we don't do that, people dump on us.
Well, I mean, the thing is, it's what I loved reading. When I read the article, somebody showed it to me, and I was just absolutely fascinated by it because it really does show you the world that we're living in right now. And again, it's not something that I look at and I'm horrified by. It's like something I look at and go, oh, okay, yes, all right. So there are these.
But there was always George Jones and Tammy
A
Wynette.
lot of times they don't cross each other.
Yeah.
She took.
How do you get your silo? And
He was gonna go out drinking. She took the keys to his car, but she forgot about the keys to the old John Deere.
Her parents, I think they and their
So he drove himself to the bar in a John Deere tractor.
Are convinced from what they had been reading that hurricanes were brought here by our enemies, and convinced Absolutely convinced. And there were a couple of other pieces of information that were information that were just, that is now part of their reality. So
I heard
it's
that they
also
were
about
selling the
you guys have just
mansion.
scratched the surface here. This piece is
They were
amazing,
selling the
and we're gonna
house.
talk about it more. Axios co-founders Jim Vandehei and Mike Allen, thank you both very much.
And you know,
For this.
there's
And
going to
we'll
be
see you soon. Up
someone
next, Pablo Torre
to be
and
very
Paul
interested in
Weinbach
buying the
join
house
us
because
with
a
the
lot of
biggest storylines
murder
from the NFL and the
memorabilia
college football
will be in
playoff
there.
now set with one
I ain't heard anything else.
notable omission.
But there's going to be someone
We'll be right back.
that is willing to pay for that. Buster? Hey, this is what we name our sons down here in the South. Buster and Bubba. Buster and Bubba. Yeah. But remember, Buster also did some shit too now.
And you have this dream every night?
Yeah, every night.
He's got to carry on the name.
Only pay for what you need.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
Do your dry eyes still feel gritty?
Yep.
Or tired?
See, that's one thing that's a thing that
Mibo is the only prescription dry eye drop that forms a protective layer for the number one cause
he
of dry
doesn't
eye.
realize
Too much tear evaporation.
that he put
For
that
relief
once he did what he did to his wife and his son, and Snapchat caught that shit. That shame goes down to your next of kin, which is your son.
For relief that feels. Ask your eye
Yep.
doctor about prescription Mibo.
And if his son decides to have kids with somebody, it'll go down to them too. That's like the worst.
When their egg lands best. Taste so fresh and amazing. Deliciously superior nutrition too. For us, it's eggs any size. As long as they're the best. Egg
Lost his
Best.
only brother. And that's a beautiful, I mean, Walterboro is beautiful.
Crowds. If you can believe
You go down to low country here, it is beautiful.
But wherever I
Now it's going to be tainted with that memory. That's another memory we don't want to be remembered by.
Sometimes it takes
It's
someone
that.
who really knows you to make you feel seen.
Gifts that say I get you. Etsy has it.
Ted the turkey with gravy and fixins. La 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 la.
That we are at a precipice.
'Tis the season for ham and pork roast. La 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 la.
Good thing I forgot my hearing aid. Memory and thinking issues keep piling up.
I know, but to
It may
lose
seem
two
like normal aging, but could be due to a buildup
an
of
insane
amyloid plaques in the brain.
night.
The sooner you talk to
No.
your doctor, the more options you may have. Learn more at amyloid.com.
Give the Omaha Steaks favorite gift package that includes bacon wrapped filet mignon, chicken.
I would be the one to rat out my dad. I would still rat him out.
You'll save 60%.
Even though he ain't talking to me, I still rat him out. I'll be on the phone with the cops.
I'm Jonathan.
If I know that he done something, damn right I'll rat his ass out.
If you're a
He would do the same for me. He would do the same.
The 3 P's.
If I did something, which trust me, my conscience would kill me, would get me.
Price, price, and price. A price you can afford, a price that can't increase, and a price that fits your budget.
I'm 65 and take medications.
But I couldn't do something like that to somebody. I couldn't do that to an animal.
I just
My
turned
conscience would
What's my price?
get the worst of me.
$9.95 a month for you two.
I look at some of these
About the number one most
people,
popular whole life insurance plan available
when I look at a lot of
program. No medical exam. no
predator
Your acceptance
poachers,
is
I
guaranteed. So
watch
call now.
them,
Call 1-800-507-3481. That's
and
1-800-507-3481.
I couldn't do what they do. I couldn't do what they do and keep my cool. I mean, I would have been in that orange jumpsuit real quick. And I told them, I said, thank God for what y'all are doing. Going out there and getting these bad guys. I told them, I said, thank you. Yeah, they had football last night.
Second and 5. Wilson has it.
And they're playing the Tampa Bay Bucks. Buccaneers. And now to the sports section of Morning Joe. Oh, damn.
And the goal following the timeout. Purdy looking at Joe, he throws. Touchdown. Jawan Jennings. I don't know how many organized football leagues there are.
They suspended a player yesterday for 3 games or something. I don't know what it was for.
Turning on the Jets. Charbonnet takes it to the house. Touchdown, Seahawks.
Damn, Seahawks.
Stafford sees it. McCoy with the block. He let go. Scores. Touchdown, Rams. It is Mahomes on the roll. Mahomes pumping. Stops those. Complete for Kelsey in the first down. They've done it again. Mahomes to Kelsey. Chargers can't stop it. The kick will come from Matthew Wright. This is for the division, for the Chiefs. For the division. It's the break for the division, for the Chiefs.
Oh, damn, the Chiefs won the game. That was a low-scoring game last night.
In 2024, the most Chiefs thing ever. Unbelievable.
Nobody can stand Buffalo.
Just barely. So let's weigh in. There's some of the top plays across the NFL yesterday, including the Chiefs once again, winning barely.
Yeah, barely. That was a low-scoring game last night. 11 o'clock, it was like, oh, God. I recorded it last night. I always record the football games. Pretty much.
The 49ers look like the 49ers again. The Steelers now 10-3.
But we got news yesterday that South Carolina is going to be playing Illinois at the Citrus Bowl in Florida on New Year's Eve at 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
What were your takeaways?
I got pepper on it. So,
We've moved from me
Jules,
watching a scientist to about
my team is going to beat Illinois.
Team, I believe in history. We need a priest to examine this, Joe. We're in the realm of the
When it comes to Sunday Night Football on NBC, I follow them. I just follow the game because I like to hear Carrie Underwood sing that the theme song to Sunday Night Football, which she is awesome, which I love Carrie Underwood.
With a field goal as time expired to get yet another victory in an improbable run that everybody is just like, what do you do with this? What do you do with a team that feels like just a billionaire getting tax cuts when it comes to good fortune? It's totally unnecessary how they're doing it. They are doing it. So
Oh, Lord, yes.
As always, by this.
Everyone's congratulating them dogs.
I will tell you, this reminds me of Vikings team.
And that ain't bad for Texas, going to their first SEC championship. That ain't bad. We beat them. I think we beat them. think. I'm not sure. I know we beat a Texas team. That's all I'm gonna tell you.
Super Bowl. I just don't think. Yeah, that's a bold, and I know I'm betting against the field. Paul Feinbaum, we're going to get to college in a second. But just have to talk about Bryce Young. Here's a guy that the Carolina fans were ready to throw away.
Bum. I crow louder than you think, okay?
Bryce has had a remarkable
I crow louder than you think.
They would have beaten the
Oh, he
Chiefs
need to go.
and the Eagles. Of course, it
Me to
works
kick him out.
best for him because the more they lose, not because of him, the better draft pick they get next year. But Bryce Young, he's suddenly looking like that guy we saw for 40 years at Alabama.
You know, Joe, and what's so remarkable is that literally everyone
Oh, is that Nick
in
Lamont?
the community and around
Oh.
the world of the NFL
Okay.
wrote him off.
Okay. I'm sorry, Bum. Sorry, Bum. He said he's calling me Rooster. Okay. Cock-a-doodle-doo. Cock-a-doodle-doo. Okay. You see how I crow? I crow loud. Loud and proud. Ask the bug.
Snyder is still alive somewhere. Incredibly, though, they're coming so close, and really, he's done everything imaginable. He doesn't have great receivers.
Oh, okay. I see what you mean. I'm sorry. I was gonna get it.
Yesterday you saw against the Eagles.
How you doing?
An NFL receiver can't make a simple catch, but it is one of the greater comeback stories of a guy on a team.
Oh my God, Australia. Oh my God.
But he deserves some.
I love that country so much.
Capped off if an NFL receiver could actually catch a touchdown pass. It would have capped off a 98-yard.
My favorite's the koala. Koala. I can't say koala bears because koalas are marsupials because they got
We
pouches.
talk about Aaron Rodgers so much. He has a documentary, by the way, coming out next week. It's great timing for me because I happen to enjoy just the Schadenfreude of that.
No.
Paraded out there as if this season did not happen when this season was worse than last season when they did have Aaron Rodgers. We're just keeping score home at this point. It's very funny for me.
I was in another chat last night. Then I fell asleep.
Glad we can make your morning. Longest playoff drought of any team in professional sports.
In any sport in America.
And the Jets haven't beaten Miami, I think, since 2014.
No.
Let's get to why I came today. And threats, political threats. Listen, the college playoffs, and even going to 12, it's a joke how they do it. Nick Saban said it yesterday. The fact that they don't set this up like you set up March Madness, where you actually get the 4 best teams and you put them the head of the 4 brackets. I just listen to this. I hear Pablo sighing already because he was probably one of those guys saying yes, TCU deserves to be in a couple of years ago. So we now
I gotta hear this shit right here.
Indiana and SMU ball. We have 2 teams in the playoff that haven't won a single game against the top 25 opponent all year. And they're going to get crushed in this playoff. And the committee knows it's a joke. I don't know why they've set this up in the way.
Because it gives other teams a chance to at least get to play in the college playoffs. The hell?
You lose three games in Alabama, you don't deserve to go to a playoff. But 2 things.
Nick Saban's just mad because Alabama is not going to stand a fucking chance. That's just my opinion.
Fair to TCU because they beat Nutley High by 3 touchdowns. I mean, and you got teams like Alabama that beat Georgia, that beat South Carolina, who of course.
Hey, Georgia, you want this? I'm a Carolina girl. You want this, Georgia?
The second part of it, the top 4.
Y'all get their asses.
2 of those 4 seeds, Arizona State and Boise State, who would all both lose 5 to 6 games if they played inside the SEC easily. So, Paul, here's my question to you as an Alabama fan, and I'm dead serious. Why wouldn't Alabama leave the SEC and either become independent I'm serious. Are you going to play in the ACC where quality wins? I kid you not. Quality wins are considered Duke, Wake Forest, and Louisville. I'm totally serious. I think it's stupid for us to stay in the SEC. It's stupid because if we go out of the SEC where we beat each other up week in and week out, we get to go to the playoffs every year. Our team's not beat up.
Oh,
and
God.
we win one national championship after another.
I know Gunsmoke goes on late at night.
This morning we were all gathered here together, and Alabama had gotten in the playoffs, and it was a much different mood than this funeral we're having today. Joe, let me get
Danny keeps it 100.
You're right in everything you said, except I don't think that Alabama should leave the SEC. First of all, SMU is in the playoffs. You know why? Because they beat Duke. They beat Duke, not Shoshone in basketball, but they beat Duke in football. That is their card.
Tomorrow.
As far as your other question, it really is an important question, Joe, because right now I feel very comfortable that the head of the SEC and the head of the Big Ten are having very serious conversations. These two men control college football. And the only, I'm not going to give you a long explanation, but the only reason we have this playoffs today is because other commissioners tried to torpedo it after Oklahoma and Texas entered the SEC. They threw a fit, and they tried to block the 12-team playoff that had already been announced. So they had to compromise. You understand that. They made a deal for this year. It won't look the same next year, and when the TV contract runs out at the end of 25, it will look dramatically different. It has to be seeded, and if it's seeded correctly, Alabama is in, and SMU is doing whatever SMU does this time of the year.
You know, it seems to me that, Pablo, when you have these ESPN shows that talk about it, and Booger comes on and he talks about how Nutley High School's JV team went 12-0, so they should deserve to be in. The big lie that
They're saying it's raining here, but I'm smiling. Listen, my mama.
Right? So the SMU,
she's happy.
Deserves it because they got to the ACC Conference Championship. Clemson deserves it because they won the
Clemson
ACC.
does not deserve a damn thing. 17-14. Go Cox.
Over the past 25 years,
Number one.
How many national championships do you think the SEC has won?
So I looked it up, and I know over the last 20, the SEC has had 10 champions or finalists. Champions or runner-ups, which is a crazy stat, but what do you got? What's your number?
I've got, and I'm counting Texas now, who won in 2005.
Okay. I see what's happening.
No, this is the only win. 20 out of 25 national championships this century have been SEC teams, whether it's Auburn or Florida or Alabama or LSU, Texas in 2005,
or Georgia,
Southwest Conference.
Georgia.
I'm just saying, this lie that the committee holds up and that Booger McFarland holds up every
Booger McFarland, come on!
Created equal, just an absolute joke, and it means fans don't get to see the best play.
Paul's got something. Paul, what you got?
And Joe, one more thing. After Texas beats Clemson in 2 weeks, do you know what Clemson's record will be in the SEC this year? It will be 0-3 because Clemson lost to Georgia on the opening weekend, 34-3. They lost to South Carolina, which is in the second tier of the SEC, trying to get to the first tier, on their home field.
Yes!
And you know they're going to lose to Texas. So that's the comparative. It's going to be for America to see that the representative of the ACC will likely almost.
I'm pulling for Texas. I'm pulling for Texas. The star shines bright deep at night, deep in the heart of Texas. I'm pulling for Texas.
This is a 12-team field for the first time. I just want to reiterate that. It is a success on the level of, look at all
what I don't get is how
wrong, I believe they say in Germany, about the 12th spot, right? So the whole idea,
getting to the ACC. I know the ACC is kind of weak right now. And win it.
Scenario for everybody not in the SEC. You have Alabama and its constituency saying, how dare you leave out the biggest, baddest team in the history of college football, because they were fighting for that last spot, and because this coalition, this rainbow coalition of conferences, decided to enshrine collectively the ACC championship game.
No.
And so Paul is right. In the near future, you
Nope,
will see
I'm rooting for
system,
Texas.
Big Ten and SEC threaten to take their ball and go home because
I cannot root for my enemies. I can't root for them, no. I cannot root for my enemies. Hey, well, they're both orange. They're both orange. But I'm pulling for the Longhorns.
Well, because, and again, it's
I'm
not
pulling
because
for the
of
Longhorns.
It's not because of conference. Alabama beat Georgia.
For my enemies.
That's true. Alabama beat South Carolina, which Clemson lost to. Alabama beat Mizzou badly.
I need to look at Carolina's schedule for next year.
Go through the SEC
I gotta look.
schedule,
You know, I'm getting some weird vibes.
If we were playing Duke, I'm serious. Duke, and then Wake Forest, and then Louisville, and then Oklahoma.
Ain't no conference tougher than the SEC. I'm sorry. Ain't no conference tougher than the SEC.
All I want is a merit-based system. And this is not about a two-party system. I think, Paul, all I want the NFL,
Oh, God. Oh, yeah, Oklahoma.
Is March Madness, where you've got,
Now, don't get me wrong.
and you know that they're going to be the ones that are number one in the
We got
bracket. If
Shane
that were the
Beamer.
case here,
He came from
and then
Oklahoma. He was a coach for the Sooners.
the number fours that
We
way,
got
there'd
him.
be no problem here. You actually do it based on merit.
Ooh, we beat Oklahoma.
The only good news is this is so bad that it will get
That's
better,
okay.
and I feel very confident in reporting.
I think
that
we
they're
beat
working on
Oklahoma.
it
I gotta
as
look
we
at the
speak.
schedules.
But we're stuck with
If
it.
I
It's
watch the
still
game
better than it was.
and something would piss me off, you know, I'm gonna be at Walmart the very next day buying a new TV. You know? Because I would throw something and just break it. But
Essentially what they did to SMU on Saturday night.
what I don't get with some of these fans, even if you win, you're still gonna bitch about how many points you gave out to the other team. Does win. Get over it.
So we
You
have
know? Hate it.
we have very little very necessarily in this sports
We don't need to cover this.
Pablo Torre briefly. Juan Soto signs a record $765 million contract with the New York Mets, and it's not just that he chose. The
I'm
Mets
ready
to
for
Yankees. He left
basketball
the
season,
Yankees to
which
sign with the Mets. It is a
Our Lady
mirror.
Gamecocks
Yeah,
is
this is the
doing their
largest
job.
contract in the history of sports.
We got
Leo
the
Messi,
best
Patrick Mahomes,
coach
anybody on the
in the
planet.
world.
I have never seen this.
We got Dawn
I'm a
Staley.
little shaken, John. The Yankees.
She has really
I
turned that
don't see
team
more
into
shouting
a
for it. Just
powerhouse.
keep on using the German here today. It's bad. It's bad. And Juan Soto, look, Steve Cohen, this is what happened. This is, if you fell asleep for 20 years and you woke up and you said, wait a minute, a guy is getting 700, he's getting the GDP of Micronesia over 15 years to sign with the Mets. What in the bleep is happening? Steve Cohen is one of the 100 richest men in the world. He's a billionaire, private equity guy, hedge fund guy, excuse me.
In Oklahoma and
Steve Cohen has said,
SEC.
I have all of the money. I'm
SEC
going all in. Whoever you
West.
thought George Steinbrenner was, the late great George Steinbrenner, it's me now. I am him. I'm gonna get this guy, and they did it. I haven't seen it like this. This is an embarrassment for the Yankees, and it's a problem because the Mets, as we know, had a miracle playoff run, and now they have all of the firepower that the Bronx used to, and it doesn't feel good.
Host Pablo Torre finds out on Meadowlark Media. Pablo Torre and ESPN's Paul Feinbaum. Thank you both. So sad.
He looks like an Alabama fan from Op on Sunday.
Okay.
Mika heard some yelling and came running in. She thought Alabama made the playoffs. No, it was rough.
Very dark moment. Okay. Thank you both very much. We're going to move on to news at 12 minutes past the hour. So we're following the very latest out of Syria, where rebel forces have captured Damascus,
we
toppling
need
the
to get talking
regime
about
of
more
President
sports
Bashar
now.
al-Assad and forcing him to flee to Russia. NBC News White House correspondent
And
Ali
we can
Rafa
go
has
to
more
Russia.
on the Biden administration's response.
At long last, the Assad regime has fallen.
President Biden reacting to the fall of the Assad regime and quick military action in Syria.
Just today, U.S. forces conducted dozens of precision strikes.
Those strikes hitting more than
But I'm gonna have to look at
75
Carolina's
targets,
schedule.
including camps, leaders, and operatives. The White House hoping to prevent a resurgence by the terror group in the region.
We're clear-eyed about the fact that ISIS will try to take advantage of any vacuum. We will not let that happen.
The president committing to protecting the roughly 900 U.S. troops he says will remain in the country, while offering a blueprint of future U.S. support.
But last time I went to a Carolina game,
establish a transition away from the Assad.
I went to the Carolina Tennessee game and I got in for $20. Someone was selling tickets outside the arena. And I was a little
While making clear the country's future is still
on edge. I mean, they walked me to the place where the lady was scanning the tickets and he scanned me in. I was like, oh damn, and I had a walker at the time.
Mr. Biden also committing to securing the release of Austin Tice, an American journalist.
We just gave him a welcome. We just gave y'all a welcome to the SEC.
He's alive. We think we can get him back.
We just gave y'all a welcome.
Tice's family, who had
Welcome to
criticized
the
the Biden
SEC.
administration for not doing more, hopeful fall of the Assad regime
That
creates an
motherfucker back.
opportunity to bring Austin home.
We are hopeful.
Then we did that with Mizzou when they first came.
And joyfully
I went to that Mizzou game.
walking for you today.
And I was right across the street
For the New York Times, Peter Baker.
from the Mizzou game.
Staff at the CIA and Department of Defense,
And it was hot.
Staff writer at the Atlantic, David Frum, joins us.
And it was during that time they had the SEC network.
MSNBC.
And I got to saw the back of Tim Tebow.
All on board this morning.
Peter, let's start with you. What is the White House saying this morning, and what are they planning to do to influence these tumultuous movement in Syria and across the Middle East right now?
Well, this is a tricky situation for President Biden and the administration. Obviously, lots of celebration that Assad.
I used to go to a lot of college football games, and they were so much fun.
That doesn't necessarily mean that the people who come after him are going to be Jefferson.
You got to see the pre-game show and what goes on the field that they don't show on regular TV. You got to see it there. It was so amazing. I love it.
So how, what's the best way to do it? Now the administration has been.
But then that's when I found out you can go outside the arena
the Turks as intermediaries, the main
and go across the street.
As you take over, do not involve ISIS. Do not bring.
That's where you can have the most fun.
And they've been reassured by messages back saying, no, we're not going to do that. That's the main concern of the American policymakers at this point, not to allow ISIS to regain some traction in the vacuum that's following the deposing of Assad. But that doesn't necessarily mean that these new rebel groups are, going to be America's friends, or going to be able to assert, real control over the country and create a better society. That's certainly the hope.
But I just remember, walking to the Bojangles, which was across the street from Willie B. They even had the food truck out there before they were allowed to sell food inside the arena.
Back in 1989, when you were too young, of course.
You couldn't go inside to get what you want to eat, so they had it outside. The food truck. Because inside, God bless America, I mean, they start cooking at 9 o'clock in the morning at Bojangles.
That a bloody 14-year civil war that cost 500,000 lives would be over in a matter of a week, but it was. Why?
It's a great question, and I think the people that I've been speaking to say that all of the major players in the region who backed these rebels, and including some in the United States, keep in mind this coalition of rebels, and we are focusing on mostly those that are, as they are known, HTS, that are the more hardline ones. There are others that the U.S. backs from the southwest part of the country, and those
And then
rebels
I
are also in
remember
touch with HTS.
walking to
They
the
had a
Inmark
battlefield assessment. They looked at the map of the region.
convenience
They saw
store.
that Iran
All
was
of
a
us,
major
everybody
factor in the
else
Syrian
was,
government, as
we
well
was
as
we was
Hezbollah
going
was
there, and it
providing
wasn't for
the
soft
foot soldiers
drinks.
on the
Well,
ground to keep
no
the
way.
Assad regime in power over the past several years. Both of those have been
And they had the
extremely
velvet
diminished and
rope
weakened over the past 14 months
guiding
because of the war
people
in
in
Gaza and because of the war in
to the
Lebanon
gas station.
with Israel. And as a result of Russia being in its war for the past 3 years in
And as
Ukraine,
soon
doesn't
as
have
you
the
walk
manpower and
out,
resources to commit to keeping
I
Assad
had 3 natty
in power.
lights.
They
I meant
assessed
3
that situation on
natty
behalf of the
daddies.
Syrian battlefield. And then this is
Because
an
I was going to be
opportune
there
time
for a
us
while.
to try and make our advance. They saw that the morale among the Syrian army
And
is
you
weak.
had one
The Syrian
preacher,
regime does not
God
have
bless
any
him,
legitimacy among the people. They knew the soldiers would not be able to fight. They don't have
on the
cohesive
sidewalk
command and control
preaching
structures, and they don't
about
have the
drinking.
resources
And
to
here we
stay
are,
engaged in a
we
battle
having
against these rebels. They're highly
suitcases of
motivated,
beer and all
ideological,
that.
trained and disciplined, and
No,
as we've seen, well equipped over the past several years
you preaching to the wrong
of
crowd.
stalemate. So they seized the opportunity, and they were
And
able
I
to run.
seen this. It was during the Auburn game one time. Yeah, before the Auburn game. We went to the gas station, got what we needed.
The collapse of Hezbollah,
And
Hamas on the run. You see Iran's air
a whole bunch of
defense
us was walking
completely
back
shot. I mean, they are
to
basically without air defense right now.
the Bojangles parking lot where we could just
what
sit,
dangers,
watch, listen.
does this massive power
And all of a
vacuum
sudden, this
provide,
person right
for the
next to
United
me
States and other countries that
started
are interested in
yelling
stability
at
in
this
the region?
person
Well, just as you said, let's put this
literally
in
in
US
front of
political
him.
context.
That had on the
Donald Trump
Clemson
said
hat.
Syria is not our business. He's
We
right.
gonna
He's
whoop
advancing
that ass in November.
propaganda about how Assad
La di
was
da di da di da
the
di da.
minorities
And
in
this
Syria.
person
What did the Syrian war do to the rest of the world?
just stood
Since
there,
the war began, and especially
didn't
since
say a
Russia
word,
invaded in 2014,
didn't acknowledge him.
half the population of Syria have returned to refugees.
And both
Most of
me
those people
and
are
this
living in Turkey,
student
but millions of them
that
fled
was
to Europe
literally
in
right
2015,
behind this fella that was
destabilizing
bitching and raising hell.
causing the rise of the European
We was
far
looking
right.
at each other and we were just shaking our heads and we were just laughing. We couldn't believe what we were seeing.
As everyone on the panel said,
And
putting together
I
something
said
stable
at
in
that
Syria
time,
would be decent
I
for
wouldn't
you
blame
very,
that
very
fella
hard.
in the Clemson
And
hat
you could do it,
that
the
would,
United States is about to go AWOL
if he
on
would
the
have
world.
heard every word that he
Is
was saying,
American
he would turn around and deck that fella
African
right in the middle of
the
everybody.
indispensability of
I
American
wouldn't
leadership.
blame him one bit
And
because
we're about to have an administration
that's
that doesn't
heckling,
believe that America can lead,
that's
or
not
doesn't believe that America
called
can
for.
cooperate. The United States should bark
You
orders
know,
at
we may
everybody and
say
listen.
some shit,
But
you
to put
know,
together, to get people, this country
when we
in
get a
any
little
way, have any
tipsy.
hope of doing that,
And
to get
sometimes,
refugees
we need to
back
be
home,
rocked to
the
sleep.
millions that are in Turkey, the
So
hundreds of thousands in Europe.
I was
It's
willing
a
for
big,
that
big
person to be
project.
rocked to
America is
sleep. That was right
indispensable,
beside
and
me.
American cooperation with allies is indispensable, and we're about to have an administration that doesn't believe in any of that.
America is indispensable. It is the indispensable power in the world. And if you don't believe us, just talk to our allies. They'll say the same thing. And Jonathan O'Meara, what this brings into sharper relief, are actually the selections of Pete Hegseth, a 40-something-year-old who's ill-equipped to be Secretary of Defense, has no experience that would allow him to be an effective Secretary of Defense for the incoming administration, and Tulsi Gabbard, who has a bizarre relationship, has had a bizarre relationship with Assad, as far as often repeating talking points. But to have the head of your intel division, to have the Secretary of Defense, two people that are ill-equipped at one of the most fraught
Isn't
times
it
in
all
this
just bringing me
region. I
back?
gotta believe,
Hey,
I
hey,
know,
Angie, how
based
you doing?
on discussions this weekend,
I'm just going down Jenny memory lane.
these nominees are not gonna make it.
Yeah, Tulsi Gabbard had been sort of flying below the radar in recent weeks because of the controversy surrounding Matt Gaetz, and then had Pete Hegseth. What has happened?
That's
this
all I was
weekend in
doing. I
Syria
was
has
going down
changed all
memory
that
lane.
because of exactly what you just said, Joe. Her strange ties with al-Assad, the fact that she's at times voiced talking points from Moscow, of course, Putin being Assad's benefactor. So, Jerry Bash, you obviously have great experience working at the Pentagon, working in these extremely sensitive levels of this nation's national security operations. Let's get your assessment here. What this means for this incoming Trump administration, as David said, who does not seem all that interested, perhaps, in being particularly internationalist. What would it mean if, indeed, Hegseth and Gabbard were confirmed to these posts?
Well, Jonathan, look, I think the good news here is that Iran has lost a proxy. I think Russia has lost a proxy. Hezbollah has been decimated, as noted. And so in some ways you see some very positive developments in the region. Of course, for the people of Syria, this is a welcome day after a 14-year bloody civil war and a half century of terrible rule by the Assad family. But, and this is critical, the U.S. continues to have interests in Syria. And primarily we want to prevent it from becoming an ungoverned space, a terrorist safe haven. And for that reason, the United States is going to have to continue aggressive counterterrorism operations, including with some limited footprint on the ground as we have in northeastern Syria, and including with a standoff airstrike capability for over-the-horizon counterterrorism operations. And if we don't do that, if we don't work with Israel and Jordan and our Gulf Arab partners to shape the outcome of Syria, it's going to come for us. It's going to come for us in the form of refugees. It's going to come for us in the form of a safe haven for terrorist organizations. And so the incoming Trump team cannot be passive. It can't say, oh, let's not get involved. That's not a thing. That's not a thing that the United States can or should do.
But some of my
We have to
friends
get involved smartly, carefully.
are Clemson
We're not
fans,
putting
and
massive amounts of troops
I
on the
just
ground.
mainly
We're not
talk
trying to
shit about
engage in
talk
nation
shit.
building, but we have to try
We
to
talk
shape the
shit.
outcome. We have
But
to
at
stay
the end
on
of the
front
day,
foot with respect to counterterrorism operations.
it's just a game.
The United Nations Security
It ain't
Council
worth
is
losing your
expected to meet
friendship
today
over.
after the fall of President Bashar al-Assad. The Russian government
It ain't
called for
worth,
the meeting
you know,
with a representative posting on Telegram. The
it
group
ain't
would
worth going
convene
to
behind
jail.
closed doors this afternoon in New York.
But
Joining us now, White House National
you
Security
can talk.
Communications Advisor and Assistant to the President, retired Rear Admiral
And that's all we
John
do.
Kirby. Admiral,
We
it's
talk
great
shit.
to have you on the show. Are there any
Both sides, we all
updates
talk
to
shit.
these fast-moving developments that you can tell us about, and also what this means for Russia overall, including in its war
But then,
against Ukraine?
Well, the
but
president's
then,
been staying up to speed on all events
you
in
can
Syria,
talk it,
of course, all throughout
but
yesterday
once
and then
you
into
start,
the evening.
the other
And
person
gave an
start
update
laying their
this morning.
hands
We
on you
watch
to
this,
hurt
as you
you,
might expect, very,
it's
very
on.
closely. And I think, as he said yesterday, you'll see him engage with his counterparts in the region over the course
Hurt them,
of
don't
the coming
kill.
days on the phone to make sure that we all have the same common sense and that we are all working towards the same goal, which is a Syria that can be governed effectively and efficiently.
Angie, please pray for
the Syrian people, because Jeremy's right.
Caden's family.
A stable
His son
Syria
is
does
in
absolutely affect
surgery
our
right
national
now.
security interests, not just there in the region, but elsewhere around the world. And as for the war in Ukraine, what I can tell you is that the Russians continue to make some plotting progress in the east. They're still active fighting around Kursk. As you know, the Ukrainians put some troops in the Kursk Oblast. They're still going at it. The North Korean soldiers are still involved in that fighting. And what we're trying to do is surge assistance to the Ukrainians. There was just a recent package announced. There's going to be another one coming soon to make sure that Ukraine is in the best position they can to succeed on this battlefield. But just as critically, if and when this goes to negotiations, and I've seen all the comments about what might be negotiated and when and by whom, but if and when it goes to negotiations, Mika, we want to make sure that President Zelensky is in the strongest possible position, that he has the strongest hand to play.
Admiral, good morning. In the wake of what we saw in Syria in these recent weeks, and particularly over the weekend, give us the White House's thoughts right now on its implications for Iran, which we know has been weakened. Its proxies have taken so many hits in recent months, and it's a regime itself that appears unsteady. What's the U.S. assessment?
Our assessment is exactly that, Jonathan.
Ooh, 4
And the
hours.
president spoke about that too yesterday. Iran is in a much more weakened, much more distracted space than it's ever been before. Their so-called axis of resistance just keeps falling, one card after the other. Hamas is decimated. Hezbollah is now on a ceasefire with Israel, and now, of course, Assad is gone. So they're looking at the world. They're looking at their world, certainly in the region, and they are knowing that they are in a much weaker position than they've ever been before. And so what they do next, we're going to be watching closely, obviously, and seeing. But it's hard to imagine them being able to reassert their influence in quite the same way that they have in the past. And again, that's a real testament
to the kind of involvement and engagement and support that the United States has been giving to Israel in their fight against
Let's just go
Hamas there in
and
Gaza, and also to the
I can take it right now.
Assistant to the President, retired Rear Admiral John Kirby. Thank you so much, greatly appreciated. Eamon,
You'll just keep those right there and just
Syria, at least the most powerful faction that the United States is labeling a terrorist organization is saying that it's sort of we've changed. We're going to unite the country. We're not going to be extreme. It sort of reminds me
I'll take
of
all
what
this
we were hearing
medicine,
out
but
of
that's okay.
Afghanistan about the new Taliban. And then you find out, meet the new Taliban, same as the old Taliban. What can you tell us about this terrorist group, this rebel group that's leading the charge and taking over Damascus and Syria?
Yeah, I mean, I think the only thing I can say from my own experience also is don't trust, but verify. I mean, at the end of the day, their actions are going to matter more than their words. And to specifically talk about the leader of this group, Abu Muhammad al-Julani, a person who was affiliated with Al-Qaeda, also went to go fight along ISIS in Iraq against the Americans, a young guy born in the Golan Heights or near the Golan Heights in Syria. Ultimately, he is trying to recast himself. He gave an interview to CNN where he said that he has changed a lot of his viewpoints. And you kind of could see that over the last couple of years in that they distanced themselves from some of the more extremist hardline elements that fought alongside HTS inside Syria against the regime. Now, of course, he's saying the right things. We heard that from President Biden. We're hearing that from other American officials, that the language has changed, but it's going to matter about the actions. One thing that has happened already in the first 24 hours since they've taken control of the government is that they've announced a new prime minister, a Salvation prime minister, to lead this transitional council, if you will, inside Syria. That man is a Syrian government, a former government official who the HTS has recommended. He's a technocrat. So we're going to see whether or not the rebels and the Syrian opposition have learned from the mistakes of other Arab Spring countries. You look at Tunisia, you look at Libya, you look at Egypt. Each one of those has gone in a different way based on their own experiences. Obviously, Libya being the worst, descending in a full-blown civil war. Egypt and Tunisia a little bit more stable in that they didn't have the kind of bloodshed that we saw in Syria. If the HTS and other rebel factions insist on holding power unilaterally, it is going to end in disaster. If they can bring in a coalition of the minorities and other factions within Syrian society, it has a chance of success. And in the first 24 hours, they seem to have signaled that they want to give all of these participants in Syrian society a seat at the table. Again, whether or not when it comes to actual power sharing that materializes remains to be seen. Right now, they're signaling the right words and the right changes, but it's not something that I would bet on completely.
All right, Eamon, thanks so much as always for being with us. We greatly appreciate it. The Atlantic Statement from final thoughts.
Syria's on the Mediterranean Sea. It's the home of two soon-to-be, we hope, former Russian bases. The United States can't be just a spectator here. Whatever happens in Syria, maybe the United States can't control it, but with offers, incentives, and with disincentives, the United States can be a partner with the Europeans, partner with the Gulfies. This is no time for America alone. America alone is America the loser. America is powerful because it is reinforced by strong friends. Work with friends.
Go ahead, let me
Try to
get
do America's best.
tomorrow's
security and stability to Syria. It's an
See, this is all I got to do right
here. It's wrong to say the opposite.
All right, and speaking of friends, David, great to have you on.
Thank you, David, for being on the show this morning. Appreciate it. All right, take care. See you soon. Time now for a look at some of the other stories making headlines this morning. The leader of South Korea has been barred from leading the country following his short-lived attempt last week to impose martial law. The Justice Ministry approved the travel ban as investigators consider whether his actions amounted to an insurrection when he attempted to seize the National Assembly using soldiers. An effort to impeach the president failed over the weekend. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says around 43,000 of his country's soldiers have died in the war with Russia. Those comments appear to be in response to President-elect Donald Trump's claim that Kyiv had lost some 400,000 troops. Zelensky says while hundreds of thousands have been wounded, many returned to the battlefield. Still, Ukraine's count of those killed is far below estimates by Western intelligence agencies. And President-elect Donald Trump made his re-entry onto the global stage of the weekend at the reopening of the Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris. Trump sat in the first row at the ceremony between French President Emmanuel Macron and France's First Lady. First Lady Jill Biden also sat nearby, the pair sharing a moment before the French First Lady took the seat between them. Ahead of the event, Trump met with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and French President Emmanuel Macron. It was the first face-to-face meeting between Trump and Zelensky since Trump won the election last month. Macron's office says the meeting between the trio was proposed by Macron and arranged soon before Trump's arrival. A Trump transition spokesperson described the meeting as a very general discussion.
Tomorrow's is
When asked by
ready.
NBC News
Just use it
whether
one
Trump
time.
still hopes to end the war in Ukraine by inauguration day, the official responded, quote, he is optimistic. Trump also met with the Prince of Wales during the visit. Prince William was set to discuss the importance of the relationship between the U.S. and the U.K. Kensington Palace described the meeting as friendly and warm, and that picture is from Prince William's personal Instagram account.
William goes to wash those hands.
Very concerned that Joe Biden has ceded the stage internationally already to Donald Trump, that world leaders are treating Donald Trump as a de facto leader. I actually had a source inside a European delegation call me and was at the event and was in some of these meetings. And he said he'd never seen anything like it before, that Donald Trump was treated as de facto president there, and it found it to be highly unusual, but also highly unusual that the sitting president had exited the stage and seemed to leave it as an incoming president.
Yeah, the old adage that there's only one president at a time doesn't seem to apply in this transition unless you believe the one president at the moment is Donald Trump. It is very striking how much Biden has, shrunk from the stage. He's pulled back from the national conversation. He did come out yesterday and give that statement about Syria, asserting himself, therefore, in effect, as the president. But you're right, to watch Trump at Notre Dame, who hasn't yet taken office yet, to see Trump on Sunday, on Meet the Press, to see daily announcements from him, not just on appointments, which obviously happen in transition, but on policy, to the point that he is, prompting the Canadian Prime Minister to rush down to Florida to meet with him to negotiate on things that, don't actually begin until January 20th. It's very striking. We haven't seen this before. Most incoming presidents are very careful not to step on the toes of the outgoing president. But the outgoing president usually wants to keep on the stage as well. He usually wants to still use all the time left in office. And obviously Biden, I was with him last week in Angola. That was obviously an important priority of his. He went to South America for a couple of summits. But you don't see him driving the conversation. He hasn't had a single interview since the election. He hasn't given a single news conference since the election.
Let me go ahead and restart this because I got that black worm something. So I'm going to restart this.
To the pool. So he is, in fact, shrinking from the stage, and Democrats